Okay, good. This is weird to hear everybody else all around you. My name is John Kindervag. I'm the Chief Evangelist for Illumio, and I am the creator of Zero Trust. How many people have heard about Zero Trust in the room? A few of you? Good, good. So we're going to be talking about containment, Zero Trust, and the security graph, the path to anti-fragility. And you're going to learn what anti-fragility means today. So this is the disclaimer slide that they make you put in. There you go. You read that? Good. Yay. I am the person who created Zero Trust. I did this in 2010. The first report was called No More Chewy Centers. I never imagined when I created this in 2010 that this many years, 16 years later, I would get the opportunity to travel the world. I'm in Taipei this week. I'm in Seoul next week. And so it's very exciting to see where it's taken me. So what is Zero Trust? And I don't have very long to talk to you about it, so I'm going to give you some concise information here today. So Zero Trust is first and foremost a strategy. It's something you do. It's not something that you can buy. And it's designed to do two things. One is to stop data breaches from happening. What's a data breach? A data breach is when data that is sensitive or regulated has been exfiltrated from our networks or systems into the hands of a malicious actor. It's about what's going outbound. But the other thing that it does it stops other cybersecurity attacks from being successful, right? There's only two types of attacks, successful ones and unsuccessful ones. The best ones are the ones that are unsuccessful, right? You'll agree with me. And we do this by eliminating trust. That circle should go over the word trust there. Sorry about that. From digital systems. We're not trying to make systems trusted. We're trying to eliminate the concept of trust, because trust is a human emotion that's been injected into digital systems for no reason at all. So the best way to show you what this looks like is to show you how the U.S. Secret Service protects the President of the United States. This is an image from 2009, President Barack Obama's inauguration parade. And there are three things that the Secret Service knows about the President of the United States that we typically don't know about the data or assets we're protecting. First, they know who the president is. They don't do presidential discovery projects. They don't scan for the president. Second, they know where the president is at all times. They never lose him. And third, they know who should have access to the president at any given time. These are the three fundamental things we must ask when we're protecting anything, whether it is data assets or the President of the United States. So we can see here that, yes, they did have a perimeter, but look at these uniformed Secret Service agents. They have their hands in their pockets. They have the hats on. It was cold outside. They're not there to really protect anybody. They're there to intimidate and so stop some of the low-hanging fruit. The real protection is being done at the bottom of the screen, down here, what I call the protect surface. This is the fundamental concept of Zero Trust, the protect surface. What are you going to protect? You will never be successful in cybersecurity until you know what you're trying to protect. And so instead of focusing on the attack surface, they shrink the attack surface down to something really small and easy to know, and that's called a protect surface. Anybody who talks to you about Zero Trust without talking about the concept of protect surface is missing one of the key elements of Zero Trust. So on this day, there's only 4 people in the protect surface: the president, his wife, and his 2 children. If at the end of the day, those 4 people are left alive, the Secret Service has done their job. Now, you can see here what they've done here is pretty amazing. They've moved their controls as close as possible to the protect surface, get them adjacent to the protect surface to define a micro-perimeter that's defined in policy. We don't do that in cybersecurity. In cybersecurity, we put our controls on the perimeter or all the way out on the endpoint, which is as far away as we can possibly get them from the thing we're trying to protect. And this is why we have the concept of dwell time. Dwell time is when a malicious actor has been on our network for days, months, weeks, years, sometimes even decades. And we never see them because we're not looking in the right places because we put the controls in the wrong place. And so Zero Trust eliminates the dwell time because we have visibility to everything that's going in and out of the protect surface. Now, the protect surface defines a policy. Everything in cybersecurity is a policy, is defined by policy. Policy is everything. And so we must understand that all we can do is allow or deny. So Zero Trust starts with a deny all policy. And then we just turn on policies as they need to happen. So right now, there's only one policy in place. These two Secret Service agents driving the vehicle could transit outbound of the microperimeter. And then we look at this Secret Service agent at the bottom of the screen. He has his hands, they're not in his pockets, are they? They don't have gloves on. He doesn't have a hat on. It's not because it's warmer down at the bottom of the screen. It's because he has a job to do. And his job is, if somebody comes in and tries to have access to the president, get access to the president, he is going to put that deny rule in place. He's going to reject them pretty violently because underneath his jacket he has a control, and he's going to come out and get rid of and stop them from getting access to the protect surface. And so this is then the Secret Service continues to monitor and update, gather intelligence, so they can give more information to the controls. They can look at this guy out in white and say he looks a little bit, a little bit suspicious. So they're going to tell the controls to keep an eye out on him. And then they can get information that tells them they need to open up an allow rule that allows somebody to come in and get access to the President of the United States. You must understand that everything is about policy. Allow or deny, and all bad things happen inside of an allow rule. So you have to be very critical on what allow rules are. So this is what Zero Trust looks like in the real world. Now, I'm going to go back in time, back to the 1700s, to this man named Leonard Euler. And he was a mathematician who was tasked with solving a thing called the Seven Bridges of Königsberg problem. And he had to determine, could a man with a bread truck go and do his entire bread route and only cross each of the seven bridges only once? And he had to create new math for that. That's called graph theory. And so he created graph theory back in the 1700s. And this is important because, well, the answer to the question, first of all, is you have to cross at least one bridge twice. But graph theory created a new type of databases that allowed us to store information differently. We're only now rediscovering graph theory and how important it is. And so in a traditional firewall rule, they have a first-hit rule policy that does top-down processing where it scans all the rules and looks at all the traffic and looks for matching criteria based upon the various tuples that they've used to do this in. And so if the answer is no, then they're going to deny that. But if they come across a match that wins, that's where they're going to allow the traffic. And then what's fascinating is they stop processing. They aren't looking for the best rule, they're looking for the first rule. And that is a problem in modern technology. So there's a thing we call the AI security graph, and we're using it, Microsoft is using it. And what it does is it takes Euler graph theory and it turns it into security graphs, where we have this security observability very, very quickly, and we have massive scale because you're not in a linear database. So we have nonlinear rules where we look at nodes, those are dedicated resources. We look at edges, that's the traffic flows, and then we look at the properties. Those are the labels that are associated with everything. And so you can see here, there's a node, there's an edge, that's the flow of the traffic moving from point A to point B, and then we have properties, that's where we put the policy in. And so in this case, I can say I don't want traffic to move from point A to point B, and so I'm going to put a deny rule in, and we can see it turn red, and we now have a visualization using graph theory to understand how our policy works so that we can have much more clean and granular controls over traffic. So this is all instantiated in what's called a Kipling method rule. Rudyard Kipling is who this is named after, and he's the guy who gave us who, what, when, where, why, and how. So who should have access via what application, when should that be done, and it shouldn't be done 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It should only be done when your users are using that rule. And then where is it located? Where is the protect surface, the data or assets that we are trying to protect? And then why are we doing that? That's where we have metadata in there so that we can read that in analytics systems that tells us things like the name of the protect surface, the name of the type of what's known as a DAS element, which is the data applications, assets, or services. You'll see that in a second. And then we validate that flow. And so if we do that, we can create easy to read, easy to write, and that circle should be over the rule allow. I don't know why it shifted over there. Sometimes it does that when it goes from Mac to Windows. So the key thing in cybersecurity is that too many people try to do zero trust all at once for everything. Frederick the Great, the king of Prussia, he said, if you try to protect everything, you protect nothing. And this is a key concept that you need to understand. You need to know what actually needs to be protected. You cannot protect everything in your environment. It is too big. You need to protect the things that matter. And so I learned a lot from hanging out with my military friends. This is General Viet Luong. I'm going to be meeting him in a few days in Seoul, where we're going to be giving another version of this speech together. But he was the deputy commander of U.S. Army in Korea, and then before he retired, he was the commander of the U.S. Army in Japan. So a very notable military figure in American history. And whenever people meet him, they come up to him and they ask him, General Luong, what's your favorite gun? And he asks, my favorite gun or my favorite weapon? And they said, well, they're the same thing, aren't they? And he said, no. A gun is a tool. A weapon is what I use to win. And my favorite weapon is a map. And maps are so important. And this is what we're missing in cybersecurity, is the concept of map making or cartography. This is a map of the front line of the Korean War in 1952. I'm using this as an example because I am flying to Korea in a few days. And we're going to be using this as an example because here on a map you can see where all of the various belligerents are being held. And right now in this we're going to be talking about a battle called the Punch Bowl. There was right there on the 38th parallel, there was a massive battle called the Punch Bowl that was fought by the 45th Infantry Division of the United States Army. And there's my dad when he was 19 years old. He fought in that battle, fought in many, many battles up and down the line in Korea. And so I'm excited. I'm going to get to do a DMZ tour in Korea and see some of the places that he might have saw when he was there in 1952 and 1953, although they look a lot different now than they looked when he was there. But you have to have a map. So think of every photo you've ever seen of every famous general. What do you see them looking at? They're looking at a map because a map gives them the information they need to win. You see, in life, there's two things you can be. You can be wrong and you can be lost. If you don't have a map, you're going to be both. But if you have a map, you might be wrong, but you'll never be lost because you can just look at that map and it will tell you what to do. That is the same thing in cybersecurity. If we have a map, we can understand what we need to do. And so this leads us to the concept of cyber terrain. So this is an image from one of Illumio's maps. The reason I joined Illumio is because of the map mapping capability of digital systems. So we can define different types of terrain. So in the military, terrain is always bounded. Think of a map as four sides and an X. And is the X this place you need to be, or should you find another X? Those are the questions that military people say. You'll often hear them talk about, and you can see this in war movies. Somebody will yell, "Get off the X," and that means wherever you're standing is not a good place to be. So terrain is bounded, and there's different types of terrain. So there's influence terrain. That's the stuff that influences what's happening out there, but you can't control. A lot of the AI stuff that we're hearing about is influence terrain. You can't control what other people are doing with AI systems. So you have to understand that they're influence terrain. And you need to focus on what's called impact terrain. Impact terrain is the terrain that impacts you directly. You have to understand what is in your organization that could impact you. And you're seeing an AI security graph in place right now that's showing us that impact terrain. And then the other concept in terrain is called the high ground. The high ground is the place you need to take and hold. You get up high, and that gives you an advantage over your attacker. The high ground is the protect surface. The high ground is the data and assets that you need to protect. And so in Zero Trust, there's a simple 5-step methodology for deploying Zero Trust environments. If you do it this way, you will be successful. If you try to do it other ways, I can't guarantee success. But I can tell you that I've designed, built, overseen, and architected more Zero Trust environments than anybody else in the entire world. And this comes out of my real-world experiences. So the first thing we're going to do is define the protect surface. What do we need to protect? Right? That is the fundamental question. People call me all the time. I bought this product or that product. What do I do? I don't know. What are you trying to protect? And they said, well, we haven't thought about that yet. Well, then you're going to fail, because until you need to know what you're going to protect, how can you be successful in doing protection, right? That's what cybersecurity is all about. And what you protect is what is known as DAS elements. This stands for data that's sensitive, applications that use sensitive data, assets that are sensitive, like think of your OT assets that control your power plants and your electrical facilities and manufacturing, all that kind of stuff are assets. And then services like DNS, DHCP, Active Directory, Network Time Protocol. And so what we do is we put a single DAS element into a single protect surface, and we build out our Zero Trust environment one protect surface at a time. This makes Zero Trust incremental. We're doing it one at a time. It makes it iterative. We're doing it one after another, and it makes it non-disruptive. So all we can screw up is one protect surface. And then the second step is we then map the transaction flows. Again, I've already told you that's why I joined Illumio, was because of the transaction flow mapping capabilities. This was the hardest thing to do. I have a longer presentation where I show the first original transaction flow map that was made, and it took months and months to build, and it wasn't very accurate. And the idea that you can see what's going on, you can see where your enemy is, you can see where you are, you can see what needs to be protected, that's huge. And then after that, that's when we'll architect, that's when we'll decide what products and technologies we use, because every Zero Trust environment is tailor-made for the protect surface that we are protecting. There's no other way to do it. You can't start with the product and go on. You have to start with the protect surface and move forward. And then step 4 is policy. I've already talked about that in the Kipley method policy, using an AI security graph that's non-relational, non-hierarchical. And then after that, we'll monitor and maintain, where we'll take all of the information, we'll re-inject it back into the system to create what's known as an anti-fragile system. Anti-fragility is the idea that a system gets stronger and stronger and stronger under load, under attack. It was the idea of anti-fragility, is really, really important. It goes beyond resilience. So Zero Trust segmentation, one of the technologies that we provide, makes Zero Trust easy to consume. And this will just show you, again, why I chose to come to this company. here I'm defining the protect surface, step one. I can see that this is a point-of-sale application. There's a database right there, and that means I know what my protect surface is. I found that out immediately. It's amazing to me that I can do this now. Now we've mapped the transaction flows already because that's what the tools do. So we can see all the things that are coming in and what are the things that are might be trying to get in. So we can see our impact terrain versus our influence terrain automatically. Attackers cannot hide from us. Our biggest client is now Microsoft. We kicked out the bad guys that were in there because we were the only people who had visibility, who could see that, because there's no place to hide when you use these types of security graphs and have a map and this type of visibility. And then step three is architecture. Segmentation is the foundation of any zero trust network, or it should be the foundation of any cybersecurity program. That was really brought home to me when I was here 2 years ago, and I was woken up at 2:21 in the morning by the president of Taiwan. She texted me on my phone, big buzz, and my phone said, there's an earthquake, you need to take cover immediately. I'm on like the 20th floor of a hotel downtown. Where am I going to take cover? And then I realized the foundation of the buildings in Taipei are built to withstand the attacks that the earth throws against them, the earthquakes and things like that. So I didn't take cover. I just crawled back under the covers and went back to sleep. And so once I've started the architectural process, then I can define policy. And you can see we have some red lines. That means there's a default deny rule, an explicit deny rule. There's some green lines up there in the protect surface. That's an explicit allow rule. And then there's some orange or amber lines there. That means there's no policy assigned to that flow. That's where it could get really bad because an attacker can use that path. In a well-architected zero-trust environment, all you would see is green and red lines. That's all you should see is green and red lines. So we need to move from resilience to anti-fragility, right? I know the topic of this event is being resilient, but resilience isn't enough. Nassim Nicholas Taleb, the man who wrote Black Swan, also wrote a book called Antifragile. It's a really important book that you need to read. And he says this: anti-fragility is beyond resilience or robustness. The resilience resists shock and it stays the same. It stays the same. It resists the shock, but it stays the same. The anti-fragile gets better. A zero-trust environment architected in this way gets stronger and stronger under load, under attack, the more information that we know about it. And that's the important thing. And he got this from strength training, weightlifting. If you read his book, he will talk about this. But there's a thing called the general adaptation syndrome, where when you have a stressor, you recover, you adapt, and you set a new baseline. The stressor is the attack. The stressor is the traffic. And we can do this in our world, just like our human body, right, is an anti-fragile system. We can make our network an anti-fragile system, too. And so that's what Taleb talked about. And I would always encourage people to read Antifragile. It's an amazing book. So we want you to be able to then control your blast radius, right? This is super important. And so we have a protect surface, and this tells us why we're segmenting. We have a segmentation gateway. That's technology that segments environments based upon DAS elements and traffic flows. And that tells us how we're enforcing the segmentation. And we have a management console to define policy. That's how they're built. But traditional networks just have a firewall, right? And here's the problem where you have these linear rules that are first hit rule policy. It means that there's always a way for a malicious attacker, we call it that, command and control, to come in and drop malware in your system. And so now that malware can spread. It can move laterally. But if we actually have a zero-trust environment where we have really granular policy, there's no rule that allows the malware to talk to an unknown resource on the public internet, that command and control channel, so it's going to be rejected. This is the value of having a zero trust environment. That protect surface, that's what you're protecting, right? There may be other things that get compromised in your environment, but they're not the crown jewels. They're not the keys to the kingdom. They're not the things that will make your environment go down. Remember, all bad things happen inside of an allow rule. This is a really, really important comment or topic, and I don't think a lot of people really understand that. But as soon as you turn an allow rule on in your firewall, in any control, that's where the bad thing could possibly happen. So you have to be very restrictive of that. Now, where do you start? I created a thing called the Zero Trust Learning Curve sitting in the Pentagon working for the U.S. military, where I help them understand where you start. So we have this curve that's all based upon protect surfaces, and we start with learning protect surfaces. You need to start with something that has low sensitivity so that you can learn how to do it safely. And after that, you'll do practice protect surfaces. Anytime you've learned a new skill, you had to practice it, didn't it? Well, that's the same way with zero trust. And eventually, then you'll get to your crown jewels, your keys to the kingdom. And you can then retrofit other things or bring other things into the system, again, based upon their sensitivity, moving across time. And you'll end up with some, what I call tertiary protect surfaces, things that don't have enough value for you to really put them in a zero trust environment. Because if you have things, for example, that you're trying to give away for free, your PDF files, if you then spend money to put controls around them, the value of that asset is going to become negative. So that makes no sense to do that. And so that's zero trust in a nutshell. That's about as fast as I can tell the zero trust story in real life, because it can be complex. But I want to thank you for coming here. It's always fun. This is my third time to Taiwan, and always excited, always good to be here. And do I have time for one question? One question? Anybody have a question? No? Okay. Well, I want to thank you anyway. It's an honor to be here in Taiwan, and I hope you'll take something away from this. You'll move from resilience to anti-fragility, build yourself some zero trust environments, and that'll make it darn near impossible for the bad guys to get in. Thank you very much.